Hello, Muslim friends in the world. The Thompson family lived in a small town in the state of Oregon. They were a devout Christian family, actively involved in church every week and always prioritizing values of love, forgiveness, and justice in their lives. The family consisted of 3 members: John, a high school history teacher, his wife, Sarah, a nurse, and their only daughter, Emily, a 16-year-old teenager. Emily was an intelligent and curious girl with a habit of reading books about various cultures and religions. When she was in 9th grade, she became interested in Islam after studying the topic in her world history class. Her interest wasn't driven by a desire to convert but rather by an appreciation for the beauty she saw in how Islam viewed life, especially its concepts of simplicity and reverence for God. One day, Emily came home with a surprising decision. "Mom, Dad," she said excitedly, "I want to start wearing a hijab." John and Sarah exchanged confused glances. "A hijab?" John asked. "Isn't that the headscarf Muslim women wear?" "Yes," Emily replied. "I think it's a beautiful way to express simplicity and respect for God. I want to wear it, even though I'm still a Christian." John's initial reaction was concern. "Are you sure about this, Emily? This is America. People might misunderstand. They could think you're Muslim and treat you differently." Sarah, though shocked, tried to listen with an open heart. "Why do you feel drawn to do this, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Emily took a deep breath. "I feel more at peace when I dress modestly. I've read about Muslim women wearing the hijab as a symbol of their dedication to God. I want to do the same, but while staying true to my Christian faith. This is about my personal relationship with God." After a long discussion, John and Sarah eventually agreed to support Emily's decision, even though they knew it might bring challenges. On her first day wearing the hijab to school, she received curious looks from her classmates. Some even asked mockingly, "Emily, since when are you Muslim?" Emily calmly replied, "I'm not Muslim. I'm a Christian, but I wear the hijab because it's part of my belief in living modestly and honoring God." Not everyone accepted Emily's decision. Some friends distanced themselves, and people at church began to gossip. But Emily remained steadfast. John and Sarah stood firmly by her side, often reminding their community that true faith is about love, not judgment. "I feel closer to God this way," Emily would say whenever people asked why a Christian would choose to wear a hijab. Her parents supported her decision, even though they often faced whispers from church members questioning the integrity of the Thompson family's faith. Despite the challenges, Emily continued living as a committed Christian. She participated in church ministry, read the Bible, and even decided to be baptized as a sign of her commitment to Jesus Christ. On that day, a large baptism ceremony was held at the church, and all eyes were on Emily as she walked to the altar wearing a soft blue hijab that covered her hair. Pastor William, an elderly and wise man respected by the congregation, looked at Emily with a warm smile. Standing beside him was Sister Mary, a nun who would assist in the ceremony. "Emily," Pastor William said lovingly, "today is a very important day in your life. Before we begin, are you willing to remove your hijab as a symbol that you are fully surrendering yourself to Jesus?" Emily hesitated. The church fell silent, and the sound of held breaths could be heard from the congregation. She bowed her head and answered in a quiet but firm voice, "I can't, Pastor." Pastor William furrowed his brow in confusion. "Why, Emily? This is a moment for you to show that you fully belong to God." Tears began to stream down Emily's cheeks. "I fear Allah and the Prophet Muhammad," she said, trembling. "I feel wearing this hijab is God's command. I don't want to sin by taking it off." The entire church was shocked. Whispering broke out among the congregation. John and Sarah, sitting in the front pew, exchanged anxious and confused glances. Pastor William took a deep breath. "Emily, the Allah you speak of is the same God we worship, but we know him through Jesus Christ. You don't need to be afraid, for perfect love casts out fear." Emily bit her lip, looking caught between conflicting beliefs. "I love God," she said. "And I also can't ignore what Prophet Muhammad has taught. This hijab is part of who I am now." That day, the incident in the church sent shockwaves through the congregation. Emily, a devout Christian girl who had chosen to wear the hijab, refused to remove it during her baptism ceremony. Even more surprising, she openly expressed her fear of Allah and the Prophet Muhammad. What started as a solemn ceremony turned into an event filled with uncertainty. Pastor William and Sister Mary couldn't shake what had happened. Emily's words about Allah and Prophet Muhammad echoed in their minds. How could such a devoted Christian girl hold such deep convictions about something outside the church's teachings? Pastor William wondered. That evening, Pastor William and Sister Mary decided to study Islam more deeply. They pulled a Quran, long kept on the church's bookshelf as part of its religious literature collection, and began to read it. The verses about Allah's mercy, justice, and purity touched their hearts. "There's so much misunderstanding about this religion," Sister Mary said softly. "Maybe God wants us to learn more." For weeks, they engaged in discussions, watched lectures, and read books about Islam. They began to find peace in the teachings of Tawhid, the concept of the oneness of God. Pastor William even visited a nearby mosque to speak with the imam. He was surprised by the warm welcome and the logical answers he received to his questions about Jesus, the Quran, and Prophet Muhammad. "Islam doesn't erase my love for Jesus," he murmured one night to Sister Mary. "It actually deepens my understanding of him." Eventually, after months of searching for the truth, Pastor William and Sister Mary made a life-changing decision. On a Sunday service, they stood before the congregation with serious but serene expressions. "My brothers and sisters," Pastor William began in a heavy voice, "throughout my life, I have sought the truth. And today, I must tell you that this search has led me to Islam. I believe that Allah is one and that Muhammad is his messenger. I can no longer serve this church as its pastor, but I want you to know that this decision comes from a place of peace in my heart." Sister Mary stood beside him and continued, "I, too, have chosen Islam as my path. I know this may be disappointing to many of you, but this is the right step for me. I pray that you will understand our decision." The entire church was stunned. Some people wept, others were angry, but many were moved by their sincerity. The congregation began to question and wonder about Islam. They thought of Emily, whose courage had started it all. In the weeks that followed, many of them visited the mosque, asked questions, and began learning. They read the Quran and engaged in discussions with the imam. If Pastor William and Sister Mary, who are so pious, can see the truth in Islam, could this be my path too? Many of them thought. One by one, members of the congregation began to recite the shahadah. What once seemed impossible became a reality.